Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Jackson County. This is a very important show, so don't grab that remote, don't change the channel. In our studio here at WKFK in Pascagoula is Mr. Ron Vincent. Ron is running for U.S. Congress, 4th District, in the state of Mississippi. Ron, thank you for coming to the studio today and taking the time to come down here. You know, running for a political office is not an easy job.
It's not an easy. It's a lot of hard work.
Thing to do. It's a lot of hard work. But Ron, we have got so many problems in this country that I don't even know where to start. I have a long list of questions here, but where I'd really like to start is to tell the people in our viewing audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background so they can know.
Okay. Well, I was born in Mississippi, Doug, and in fact, I've got a birth certificate to prove it. And I was born in Hattiesburg, which is where I live now. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you're born in Hattiesburg. You've been here all your life." Well, no. Unfortunately, I left Hattiesburg when I was about 3 because my dad was in the military at the time, and so we moved around the country. And I ended up spending a lot of time in Lower Alabama, and so that's how I got started. I've got by education, I'm an engineer. I've got a BS from Mississippi State. And so I've been an engineer most of my life, been self-employed many years too, buying and selling things, and I spent a lot of time in Europe, nearly 12 years. And so that's my background, that's where I got started, and I'm in this race because somebody has to do something. This needs to be fixed. This is not working. We're spending too much money, we're wasting money. The country is going down fast, we're losing our Constitution, we're losing our freedom. Somebody has to do something, so that's the reason I'm here.
Well, Ron, you said you spent some time in Europe. Did you ever spend any time in a communist country?
I absolutely did. I spent a lot of years behind the Iron Curtain, and what was then Prague was Czechoslovakia, and it was a communist country at the time. I spent a lot of years there, and I lived there. I had my stamps. I was not didn't just overstay my visa. I had work permits and everything. I lived there, had my family there. So I have seen communism up close and personal. I know what it is. I have seen the heartbreak of socialized medicine, and I see how terrible it is. And Doug, it scares the hell out of me. I see that stuff coming here, and it's coming here, and believe me, it's almost here, if it's not here already. And that's why I'm running, because somebody has got to push back. This is not working. I want to do two things. I'm really disappointed in the Republican leadership and the GOP party bosses. They're not getting the job done. And so what I want to do is I want to prove that with the first thing I want to do is I want to prove that with the grassroots effort, with support from the people, from the Tea Parties, from the libertarians, and the average run-of-the-mill workers, I want to prove that with their support, we can beat the GOP party boss money machine. And I know we can do that, and it certainly can be done. Ted Cruz did it in Texas. Mike Lee did it in Utah. Sarah Palin did it in Alaska. Many others have done it, and I'm absolutely convinced that Chris McDaniel is going to do it here in Mississippi. All of these conservatives were big time outspent by their liberal opponents, by the GOP, the establishment guys, and they all won, and we're going to do it here. And that's the first thing I'm going to do. And the second thing I want to do is when I get to Congress, during the freshman orientation, I understand that you're told that you have to toe the line for the party bosses. If you don't support the party bosses, you won't get reelected. I want to tell them what they can do with that. And I would like to show that by doing a good job for the people in South Mississippi, that I can get reelected without kowtowing to the party faithful. Because somebody needs to represent the people in South Mississippi and not the Republican Party, and that's what I want to do. And I'm convinced that if I do that and do a good job, the people in South Mississippi will return me to Congress. I only want to get reelected one time. I'm not in this for a career. I believe in term limits, and I'm going to set the example. Those are my 2 terms, and I'm going to get out and turn it over to somebody else who can represent the people in South Mississippi, and because I'm going to show them the way, how it needs to be done. And so that's what I'm doing. And those are the 2 things I want to accomplish.
Well, Ron, we've got so many problems facing us, and it's hard to put them. It's hard to prioritize them. The Obamacare debacle is one of them. There's almost $18 trillion deficit,
And that's
that
a
we're
major
facing.
problem.
And I really don't think you people out there understand just how much money $18 trillion is. So you may not be that good at math, but at least you can Google it and look at the number of zeros past the 18, and you will be astounded. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to pay that back. We have to start somewhere, however. But that's the Obamacare Act is killing jobs. It's going to kill the insurance industry. Period.
Absolutely. The private insurance industry is going to have a hard time surviving this. And when that happens, we're in a lot of trouble. Because if the private insurance companies collapse, then we can't survive. The healthcare system can't survive that. And the federal government is going to have to step in and take over. And look at how much money that this is going to cost. And then the federal government is already broke, already badly in debt, and then we're going to take over 1/6 of the U.S. economy, and they're going to run it. The only way that's going to happen is if they severely ration health care.
It's already been done in England.
It's already been done in England. It's been done in Germany. It's anywhere they have socialized medicine, health care is severely rationed. And what that means, Sarah Palin was right. The death panels are going to be in full swing, because that's exactly what happens. They decide that you don't get the treatment that you need. In order to save money, you get the treatment that they want you to have if you're beyond a certain age or whatever they decide. But bureaucrats don't need to be deciding about our health care, about how we're going to be treated by the doctor. Health care should be between a doctor and the patient, and everybody else needs to just butt out.
We also have a president, Ron, who looked at the camera and told Congress and the Senate, if you don't do what I want you to do, I have a pen and a phone. And he will just write an executive order. You start looking at the executive orders, and it's more than scary.
Absolutely. It's and the reason he's getting away with this, Doug, is the Republican leadership is not pushing back. Boehner in the House is just rubber stamping everything that Obama is doing. But it is their duty. It is the Republicans in the House, they have a duty and a responsibility to tell Obama no. We have a system of checks and balances. We should have 3 co-equal branches of government. And the balance on a runaway administration, and believe me, and I don't have to tell you because you know it, we have a runaway administration. They're out of control. The check on that is supposed to be the Congress. They're supposed to check the runaway administration, and their tool is money. And they should hold up the money and until they get until the administration falls in line and gets in check. Look at this recent government shutdown. Look at what happened. What happened was the House of Representatives funded the entire federal government, every penny that they asked for, with the exception of Obamacare. And they sent that up to the Senate, and funding for the entire government was there. But because it did not fund Obamacare, Harry Reid and Barack Obama shut the government down, and then they blamed the Republicans in the House for it. Why can't the Republicans stand up on their hind legs and say, we didn't do it. They shut the government down. We funded it. Why didn't they go on the Sunday talk shows and explain what we're doing? And then after they finally caved in and gave in, but they punted and waved the white flag, then the news cycle was dominated for a whole week by who won and who lost. Did Boehner win? What happened to McConnell in the Senate? Did Obama win? Did the Republicans win? Did the Democrats win? It's all about politics. The big story should have been is that the American people lost. That's who lost when the Republicans wouldn't stand up and do what they're supposed to do, and what they promised us that they would do.
Ron, I really don't feel like I have anybody that's currently in office properly representing me in Washington at this point.
Absolutely true. And I interviewed with FreedomWorks, and my interviewer was the same one that interviewed Chris McDaniel, a guy named Easton Randall. And the first words out of his mouth was, "Mississippi is the most conservative state in the Union. What is wrong with your congressional delegation?" And you know, other people are noticing these people are nuts. Nunley, Harper, and Palazzo, Cochran, and Wicker, you know, they're not representing the people in Mississippi.
I'm concerned about a lot of things. I'm concerned about, one, the assault on Christianity that this federal government is now instituting. It's in the military, it's running rampant in the civilian population. I'm concerned about the assault on the Second Amendment, which is guaranteed by the Constitution, which they're ignoring.
Exactly.
I'm deeply concerned about the deficit and what it's doing to our economy worldwide. We have more energy in this country than they do in Saudi Arabia. We have the ability to extract that energy now. We have a pipeline that President Obama is sitting on and will not authorize. That's the XL pipeline, which will create jobs.
Lots of them.
Right now.
High-paying jobs.
Right now. And you people need to find out about this. That oil is being transported on rail cars, which is far more dangerous to the environment than a pipeline could possibly be. And yet, you environmentalists out there are pushing for no pipeline. These are things that I don't understand. We are cutting our military to the bone. We are making our military into a non-effective fighting force. That is the last thing we should be doing. We are not, the federal government's not calling it a war on terrorism anymore. We are more and more recognizing Middle Eastern traditions and values in this country than we are the Christian values in this country.
They want to blame the Republicans for a war on women, but they don't want to blame the terrorists for a war. What's wrong with this picture?
Companies are having to go to the courts to try to uphold their values in regard to, God, what a terrible name for it, the Affordable Care Act. That is not affordable in any way by the government, by individuals. I, for one, have already suffered from Mr. Obama's abomination to the health care debacle, in that my deductibles are up, the out-of-pocket expenses are up. I am already paying more, and I pay for an insurance policy every month. So it's affecting me, and it's affecting my family. My son is in the military. I see what the cutbacks are doing to the military and his family. We have soldiers who are on welfare because they don't make enough money. That is absolutely asinine. We have a VA system that is absolutely a disaster.
You want to go over all of those one at a time? That was a lot of stuff. But I have to say, everything you said, I agree with you 100% on. They're all serious.
Let's start with the deficit.
The deficit. We've got to, somehow or another, we've got to pass a balanced budget amendment to force the Congress. All 535 people we have on Capitol Hill up there would say they are for a balanced budget. And my question is, why don't we have one? So obviously they're not going to do it on their own. So we have to have some kind of a balanced budget amendment to force them to live within their means, and they're not doing it. That's the starters. The other thing is we could increase the income into the federal government if we could just put people back to work. We have 92 million people in this country that are not working. Every one of them's eating, but they're not working. Those people need to go back to work. We have the Republican Party, led by John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, saying that we need an amnesty program. So that because we need the workers. Why? We've got 92 million Americans unemployed. How about let's put them back to work first? How about our veterans returning from Afghanistan? Can't we put them back to work? Why do we need illegal aliens to salvage the economy? We don't. And so that's one way. But we have to put people back to work. The other thing is, one of the reasons the jobs are in short supply is because of the federal government's ideas with their regulations. It's so tough to get a business started now in the United States that a lot of companies are going offshore because they don't have to put up with the EPA regulations. They don't have to do an environmental impact statement and pay for all of these things. It's too hard. We need to get the government off the backs of small businesses so that the small businesses can be profitable, and then they need to pay reasonable taxes, if any at all, and that will put the people back to work. I was so frustrated at the presidential campaign when the Democrats were complaining that Romney was sending jobs overseas. Nobody has sent more jobs overseas than the Obama administration with their punitive regulations and their excessive taxation. This is amazing, and why the Republicans can't defend themselves against things like this.
Ron, we're going to have to take a really short break, folks. It's only going to be a district. Ron, we appreciate you being on the show.
I'm so glad to be
here. Trip
here.
Down here. Like I said, I had a myriad of topics, and you have to excuse me for just going on, but there's so many things, and you agree that are just
Absolutely.
facing us that it's destroying the very fabric of what this country was founded on.
Absolutely.
And Obamacare, I call it Obamanation. They didn't read the bill. Another thing that was promised by someone who is now a sitting member of the 4th Congressional District, he was going to, quote, fire Nancy Pelosi. Now, we knew, if you knew anything, you knew then that he couldn't do that.
That's correct.
And Nancy Pelosi is still there,
And
Harry Reid is still there, and nothing's happened in that realm. And the Democrats, under the cover of darkness in the wee hours of the morning, with no Republican votes, rammed through a bill that is, you said, taking over 1/6
of the U.S. economy. Yeah, that's a lot.
And it is affecting families. And the president, with his pen, and I don't know how legal it is, keeps changing the law at whim according to the political climate.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that's so frustrating about the Republican leadership is they have the power to stop him, and they're not doing it. There's so much to be said about Obamacare, and I don't even know where to start on that. But I saw yesterday where Nancy Pelosi had jumped Ted Cruz and wanted to ask Ted Cruz, why are you trying to defund Obamacare? And Ted Cruz's answer was, Nancy, I'm trying to defund Obamacare because, unlike you, I read the bill. And we need to think about that too, because when that was on the table, what did Nancy Pelosi tell us? We've got to pass it to find out what's in it. Well, a doctor pointed that out to me, that is a precise description of a stool sample.
That's right.
So that's what we got.
A stool sample.
For our Obamacare.
A bunch of stool samples. Anyway, will you, Ron Vincent, if elected, stand up like a bugle in front of troops and scream your head off about these things?
Absolutely. That is one of the main things I want to accomplish. As a member of Congress, I will have a bigger soapbox, and you can bet I'll be on it. Not only that, unlike our current congressman, I will be holding town hall meetings because I want to hear from the people of South Mississippi.
That was my next question. We have had a grand total of 2 of those.
Yep.
And I'm not going to mention any names, but the former congressman had town hall meetings all over the
all
district.
over the place. He absolutely.
Whether you liked him or not, you got to admire that.
Absolutely.
That is our only chance, Ron, to go and face to face with our congressman and say what is on our mind, bring our problems, bring our concerns. And without town hall meetings,
how do you do it? How do you represent the people in South Mississippi? How do you represent the people anywhere if you don't face the people and find out what they're thinking? If you're going to represent the people, you need to talk to them. You need to hold town hall meetings. You have to listen to them, and that's not what's happening now. Our elected representatives seem like they think that their job is to bring Washington, D.C. to South Mississippi. It needs to go the other way. We need to take the morals, the values, and ideas from South Mississippi to Washington, D.C., not the other way around. And there's a whole lot more we could say about Obamacare. I was really get frustrated sometimes. They worry about shutting the government down. We're going to shut the government down. Well, that's fine. Let's shut the government down. It's worth it to get rid of Obamacare. It's a whole lot better to shut the government down than to shut our health care system down. So, and it's absolutely worthwhile. So whatever we have to do to defund it to get rid of it, that's what needs to be done. We don't need to be afraid of defunding, of shutting the government down. And as I already pointed out, Harry Reid and Barack Obama were the ones who shut the government down. It wasn't the Republicans in Congress, but they got blamed for it and were unable to defend themselves. We need a Speaker of the House who will stand up on his hind legs and tell Obama no. Because, John Boehner admits he's not able to negotiate with Barack Obama. You can believe if he cut the money off, which is his job, it's his right, it's his duty, if Boehner cut the money off, they would be down there to negotiate with him.
I don't think people understand. It is the House that controls the budget.
Absolutely.
And if the House says no, it doesn't matter what the Senate does.
That's absolutely true. Revenue bills under the Constitution have to start in the House. They cannot be generated from anywhere else. And the House of Representatives every year has to approve the entire federal government funding, every penny of it. And so right now they're just rubber stamping everything Obama wants to do. And that's one of the reasons we have deficits and spending out of sight. We're spending money on crazy things. Obama has spent $3.5 billion on global warming overseas. And we're not talking about reducing carbon footprints overseas. We're talking about things like beach erosion, which they want to blame on
He's also instituted a war on coal. And let me remind you of one thing, folks. The lights are on in this studio. The cameras are on in this studio. The equipment is running on this studio, in this studio. Our transmitter is on the air in this studio. Your television, if you're watching, is on. And it is being powered by 2 coal-fired electric power generating stations here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. If the coal goes away, guess what you're not going to have? So,
the EPA and the bureaucrats are already saying, with their war on coal, that electric rates are going to go up by 75%. And that's going to be a little optimistic too. And that's just crap. We don't have, listen, I'm a former engineer with General Electric. I worked in GE Energy. And I worked on the software and control systems for power generation stations, just like the ones we have down here on the coast. Coal can be burned just as clean as anything else, because with the scrubber technology they have, the coal gasification and liquefaction, we can burn coal cleanly. And we don't need to increase our rates by 75% to conduct a war on coal. This is another place where the Obama administration is just totally out of control. This is all being done through the EPA. There's an agency that's totally out of control. And where's the Energy Department on all of this stuff? Do you know that the Energy Department was started in the Carter administration? And you know what the reason given was? To reduce our dependence on foreign oil. Well, that's really worked well, hadn't it?
Not at all.
Why do we still fund agencies like this that don't do anything? We've got a bunch of bureaucrats up there that don't do anything. Why do we still pour that money into agencies like that? That's just crap.
Well, we've got an attorney general who seems to be able to do whatever the hell he wants to do and not answer to anyone. We've got a president who is already doing whatever the hell he wants to do and doesn't answer to anyone. And now we've got basically a Congress that is scared to do anything.
That's the only way you can put it. They're
scared to do anything? What are they scared of? They're scared of being called a racist, scared of not cooperating and keeping their jobs. This is the very future of the United States of America. We are in danger of becoming a third world nation. And folks, if you want to live like that, that's what you're going to get.
That's where we're headed as fast as we can go. And that's scary because, you know, the United States has led the world and we still should be leading the world. And with the president we have now, President Obama is more crooked than Nixon. He's more dishonest than Clinton, and he's more incompetent than Jimmy Carter. And that's where we're at. And what we have is a bunch of leaders in Congress that are scared to death of him. And that needs to change. That needs to change. We need to get rid of, we need to fire, we had to fire Nancy Pelosi, we need to fire John Boehner and get somebody in there like Kurt Gowdy.
Well, yeah, Trey Gowdy?
Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy. He's my vote. Trey Gowdy.
And that's what we should do when we go to Congress. We need to talk to these people who are putting themselves up for the leadership of the party and ask them, are you going to stand up to Obama? Are you going to defund Obamacare like you're supposed to, like you promised that you were going to do? You know, they need to go on record as saying, I will stand up to Obama and we'll tell him no. We'll make him negotiate with us, which is not happening now. Boehner's just rubber stamping everything Obama wants to do, Obama and Harry Reid. And you know this yourself. Every time somebody asks Boehner, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And he says, well, we can't get it through the Senate. Who cares? Let them worry about it, getting it through the House. It's got to pass the House too. So we don't have to pass something that just because it won't go through the Senate. Let's hold their feet to the fire. Let's have our way. Let's make them cut spending. Let's make them cut taxes. Let's make them cut the burdensome regulations down. And we have the power to do it, and it's not getting done.
That was one of my questions that, here on this list is, how would you reduce the federal income tax? We got about 2 minutes left. And folks, I've already made an executive decision. We've got too much to talk about. We're going to come back with another show with Ron, but in a minute and 40 seconds, how would you reduce the federal income tax? And if you don't finish the answer, we'll come back in another show.
Well, there's a real simple solution. We've got to get rid of the IRS. And the thing that makes more sense than anything else is the fair tax. And fair tax is basically a consumption tax. And the bottom line of the fair tax is this. You can take your whole paycheck home. You got to stop looking at your paycheck with all of these deductions on there. You can take your whole paycheck home. We're not going to tax income at all. What we're going to do is we're going to tax consumption. And that will get rid of the IRS. And that's a major plus right there. It does so many things. You get to take your whole paycheck home. The prices at the pump and the prices in the store don't go up. And the people who are not paying their fair share will have to pay their fair share. When these high dollar guys who pay only, like Mitt Romney, who pay only capital gains, if they go out and buy a high dollar house or a high dollar jet plane or boat or whatever it is, then they're going to be taxed. And so everybody will have to pay their fair share. The other thing that happens is people in illegal cash businesses, like drug dealers, for example, and there are many others, will have to pay their fair share. They're paying no taxes at all now because they don't pay tax on their income. They don't have to report their income. So the fair tax is a major way to go, and it's going to take a long time before we're going to be able to get rid of the IRS, but that's where we need to go. We don't need the IRS. We don't need to be taxing income. We need to be taxing outgo.
Well, Ron, we've come to the end of this show. It's gone by real quick, but as I promised, we are going to continue with another spotlight on Jackson County. We're going to come back with another show with Mr. Ron Vincent, candidate for 4th District, U.S. Congress. So don't miss the next Spotlight on Jackson County, where we're going to continue this very important conversation about what's facing our nation and ways that Ron says he can solve it. So join us again next week for another show with Mr. Ron Vincent.
Thank you.